Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Susan Bruckner, and this is the book that we'll be using, The Whole Pianist, and we're going to be going through it in different segments. So first, I'd like to introduce you to how to sit at the piano. And a lot of you are thinking that you're here to learn the piano, but actually the most important instrument is your body. And so we're going to go through what I like to call all the levers of the body and how they apply to the piano and how they integrate with the piano. So this is critical information. You can avoid a lot of injury and you can gain a much flashier technique quickly if you follow what I'm going to tell you right now. So first of all is the bench height is extremely important. If you put your feet flat on the floor, you do not want to be sitting too close to the piano. A lot of people like to put their legs completely on the bench when they're first learning. And if you notice, that really limits my lateral motion. I really can't, if I take my left hand and try to play the highest key, I can't really reach it, or right hand on the lowest key. So watch what happens just by moving the bench back and sitting on my sit bones and really not having my legs on the bench at all. Allows me to have much greater ease. Notice I'm swiveling on the bench and I can easily cover all 88 keys by just swiveling from one sit bone to the other. So try that right now if you would. And then the next thing is the height of the bench is really important. You want to have your elbow and your wrist, when you put your hand up on the keys, elbow and wrist should be parallel to the floor. If you're at this kind of an angle, and you might need a mirror or a friend to tell you what this angle looks like. If you're sitting too high, you'll look like this. If you're sitting too low, you'll look like that. Both of those are dangerous, but I will tell you that sitting with the wrists higher than the elbows is much more dangerous. So try to get as close as you can. Of course, my bench has adjustable knobs on it, and probably you don't have that at home. But you can easily just get a firm cushion to sit on or something to bolster you up. If you're using a keyboard, you can change the height of your keyboard. That's another way to get around this problem. But do please try to spend a good amount of time to get that ratio correct, because it's going to affect everything you do. So once you've got a good bench height and you're not sitting too close to the piano and you're just sitting with your sit bones on the bench, not your legs really, now we're going to go through all the levers, and starting with the largest lever of the body, you can see I'm hinging at the hip bones. So the hips are our largest lever. The entire torso moves from the hips. And that's really important because that's how we control tone. We can get a really big tone, or if we don't want a big sound, we'll stay back without the weight into the keys. But we want to be free there. You want to have a freedom at that joint. So practice just playing any notes and throwing your weight into the keys. Play black keys if you like. Okay, and then as we go down the body, feet are flat, by the way, I've already mentioned, on the floor. Try to keep them flat unless you're using the pedal. And the next lever would be the shoulders. So shoulders, you want them to be back and relaxed and not hunched up. It's really easy to, when we're reading music, it's difficult to read the score, and we tend to do this forward neck motion and the shoulders scrunching up. So keep the shoulders relaxed. And as we go down the arms now, we come to the elbow. The elbows should not be touching the body, the torso. You want them to be comfortably away from the torso. So you want elbows to be just relaxed. At first it might feel like you're having to hold them up, but eventually it will feel very constricted if they're actually touching your torso. There's almost no incidences where your elbows will be touching your torso while you play the piano. Okay, coming down, we come to the wrist, and the wrist is very important in piano playing because it's how we get a lot of our expression, how we do all of our phrasing Phrasing is the punctuation of music. If I play, if that's my phrase, I want to drop my wrist into it and then lift at the end of the phrase. And we'll be getting to phrasing in more detail later, but you want, basically do not lock your wrists. Try to have the wrists very supple and relaxed. Okay, now we get down to the hand itself. And when we come to what we'll just call this the knuckle bridge, I'm going to just pull this lid down. And if you have an acoustic piano at home or an electric with a lid, you could do the same. Let's do a little isometric exercise here. I'd like you to just take your elbow of either hand, either arm, and put it on the wood or on a flat tabletop surface. And just relax, make sure your shoulders dropped, and flop down. Now your wrist and your elbow should be on the hard surface together. That makes them parallel. And then pull your hand up into a slightly rounded position like that. And you should be able to see all the knuckles in your knuckle bridge, okay, if your hand is rounded sufficiently. You should be able to push, put a little like toy truck or something inside there, maybe a small ping pong ball or a tennis ball if you have very large hands. But you don't want that bridge to be collapsed. So make sure it's rounded and prominent. The next joints are quite easy to support. So basically we're trying to support all these hand joints. And even the thumb has, this would be comparable to the knuckle bridge in the thumb, and we do round the thumb. We don't play the thumb like this, but like this. So that should also be prominent, as well as the final joint on all of the fingers. And let's just call that the nail joint for simplicity. The actual name is distal interphalangeal joint, but I don't think we want to call it that. So let's call it a nail joint. And that's the most difficult joint for pianists to learn how to support. There's very few things in life where you need that joint to be rounded and supported. You can even type on your computer very flat-fingered and it's not a problem. A lot of you women, you might have long nails, and I'm just going to warn you, I can't make you cut your nails, but you'll find it's impossible to get a good position on the keys if you have very long nails. As you can see here, you want to be playing on the pads of your fingers. So as we go back to that tabletop, I'd like you to just sort of stroke the hard surface and look at all your nail joints, including the thumb, and take your other hand and just push in and resist. So this is a little isometric exercise that is, there's a little description of it also on page 9 in the book. Take your other hand and push in and resist. This gives you a heightened awareness of that joint. So see, I'm just pushing in on that joint. Do you notice any particular finger that's harder to resist? A lot of people might think it's the pinky because it's the smallest and maybe the weakest, but in fact it would be the ring finger is the most difficult to develop, that because it has has a little bit less strength than other fingers because the tendons are interconnected more to other fingers, whereas the other fingers have a separate tendon that gives them more leverage. So we have to work a little bit harder on the ring finger. When you're done doing that, shake that out and turn around and put the other elbow down. Drop your hand, make sure elbow and wrist are flat. Relax and breathe, shoulder dropped. And then keeping your wrist down on the surface, pull the other hand up into a nice rounded position. And then take your other hand and push in and resist on the nail joints. Okay, so this is a good little warm-up that could take you like 20 seconds to do once you get used to it. And it'll give you a heightened awareness of all the levers of the body and have everything work in conjunction with each other. If you look at page 9, you'll also see a nice looking hand position. I'm going to open up the keyboard now and go to the keys. Just go to some white keys and take that beautiful position you just established, and just go to like 5 white keys in a row with your dominant hand, whichever that might be. And just play those 5 notes and see if you can feel the pads of your fingers. You don't want to be up on the nail, not too curved and not too flat either. So just the pads. And you'll notice most pianists do develop kind of big pads of their fingers because they're playing on them a lot. So they develop a little cushion. Okay, so be sure that you try this with both hands, and especially your non-dominant hand, that those nail joints are also as strong. So I'll see you for the next video. Thanks.